As the losses increased, Allied analysts struggled to understand why so many bombers were being shot down without ever spotting their attackers. Crews returned shaken and confused. Many reported hearing a muffled thud, then seeing fuel erupt inside the wings or fuselage. Others described sudden structural failures, wings collapsing inward, engines tearing away from mounts, fire spreading so rapidly that escape was impossible. These destruction patterns were deeply unusual. They did not match the typical side or rear attacks that German fighters had been using for years. In fact, many aircraft showed no signs of external attack at all. To commanders reviewing mission logs, it was as if invisible hands reached up from the ground and pulled the bombers out of the sky. As investigations expanded, RAF pathfinders and intelligence officers began noticing something else. German night fighter activity seemed to increase in very specific corridors, often unrelated to flak patterns or radar coverage. There was a method behind these attacks, something more coordinated than simple interception. German fighter controllers, using advanced ground-based radar like Würzburg and Freya, were guiding their night fighters into carefully orchestrated ambush paths. But even then, the number of kills the Luftwaffe was scoring did not match the number of fighter versus bomber engagements the Allies observed on radar. Something was missing, and that missing piece was Schräge Musik. Meanwhile, inside Germany, night fighter crews were refining their technique. The pilots quickly discovered that approaching from below was not only safer, but surprisingly easy at night. The bomber formations generated huge shadows against starlight, making them silhouette targets without any need for illumination. The bomber's engines produced a deep, recognizable hum that could be tracked even in pitch darkness. German fighters, equipped with early onboard radar systems like Liechtenstein SN-2, could find their way beneath the formations without ever being seen on Allied radar screens. Once in position, they flew parallel to the bomber, steady and silent, adjusting their altitude by a few meters at a time until the target loomed overhead. The attack itself lasted seconds. The pilot triggered the upward firing cannons, sending armor-piercing incendiary rounds directly into the belly of the bomber, the fuel tanks, ammunition stores, or wing spars. The effect was catastrophic. Bombers ignited instantly or simply broke apart from structural damage. Often, the crew never even had time to reach emergency stations. Some aircraft were so quickly overwhelmed that investigators struggled to determine the exact moment of failure. Survivors later recalled hearing a sound like gravel hitting metal, followed by explosions ripping through the interior. German pilots became experts in exploiting this vulnerability. Some of them, like Schnaufer, saw it as a grimly efficient craft, a form of hunting. They described the eerie experience of flying beneath an unaware bomber, hearing the creaking metal of the giant machine overhead, watching fuel drip from the wings, and waiting for the perfect alignment. Then, with a short burst of fire, ending the aircraft's mission in an instant. No dogfight, no chase, no warning. It was silent execution. Allied commanders had no idea how widespread the threat had become. As late as mid-1944, some senior officers still doubted the reports of upward-firing weapons, believing instead that new German ammunition types or improved tactics were responsible for the unexplained losses. But the evidence mounted relentlessly. Crash investigators in Britain found round entry angles that were impossible to explain through conventional attacks. Structural analysis of wreckages pointed to vertical penetration from below. Still, without captured aircraft or eyewitness testimony, the full picture remained hidden. The breakthrough came only after an intact German night fighter equipped with Schräge Musik was captured. The pilot was forced to land due to mechanical failure, and Allied intelligence immediately swarmed the aircraft. The upward-mounted cannons shocked them. For the first time, they saw exactly how the weapon worked and why it had been so deadly. The Luftwaffe, with limited resources and desperate to stop Allied strategic bombing, had created a simple but ingenious tool that allowed even average pilots to score devastating kills. The impact on Allied strategy was immediate and severe. Briefings were updated. Crews were instructed to adjust formations and maintain greater altitude separation. But implementing these changes in wartime conditions proved difficult. The Lancaster, Britain's primary night bomber, remained extremely vulnerable from below. Many crews felt helpless, unable to respond to an attack they could neither see nor hear. The psychological toll grew with each raid. Some airmen refused to fly. Others boarded aircraft with the uneasy knowledge that Schräge Musik made their missions a matter of chance as much as skill. As the Allies pressed deeper into German territory, losses mounted despite improvements in countermeasures. Even newly added defensive scanning equipment could not reliably detect the silent night fighters. The Germans, though suffering from shortages of fuel and experienced pilots, continued inflicting damage disproportionate to their dwindling numbers. A handful of aircraft armed with upward-firing weapons could devastate an entire bomber stream. In the end, Schräge Musik's reign of terror only waned because Germany itself was collapsing. Fuel shortages grounded entire squadrons. Experienced pilots were killed or reassigned. Radar stations were bombed. The once formidable night fighter force shrank rapidly. But the legacy of Schräge Musik endured. It forced a complete reevaluation of bomber defense strategy. It exposed dangerous assumptions about aircraft vulnerability. It demonstrated that innovation in warfare does not always come from advanced technology. Sometimes it comes from recognizing a blind spot. After the war, many Allied pilots who survived nighttime raids admitted that learning the truth about Schräge Musik retroactively explained the horrors they had witnessed. The sudden explosions, the vanished aircraft, the fireballs that consumed their comrades in silence. For decades, historians debated why such a simple concept had remained undetected for so long. The answer is clear now. The weapon fit perfectly into the shadows of night war, hiding beneath the very aircraft it destroyed. Today, Schräge Musik remains one of the most frightening innovations of World War II, not because of brute force or mechanical sophistication, but because of its stealth, efficiency, and the psychological terror it inflicted. It was the weapon Allied pilots feared most and often never even saw